What I'm dealing with is hard because it involves more than just my heart. It involves a lot of little hearts. You know, we have 4 kids, and divorce is never easy. And we're both from divorced families.
For years, Kelly Clarkson speaks for the first time. To this day, nobody knew this about Brandon Blackstock. For years, Kelly Clarkson kept her mouth shut. She smiled through the interviews, laughed through the late-night appearances, and poured her heartbreak into songs rather than headlines. But now, the woman who once called Brandon Blackstock the love of her life is finally saying out loud what millions of fans have suspected for a long time, that the man behind the curtain was nothing like the man the world got to see. This is not just another celebrity divorce story. This is the story of a woman who built herself from nothing, who clawed her way out of a small Texas town with nothing but raw talent and stubborn hope, only to find herself trapped inside a marriage that slowly chipped away at everything she had worked so hard to become. And the details that are coming to light now, the ones nobody talked about while it was all happening, paint a picture that is far more complicated and far more painful than any tabloid headline ever captured. Kelly Brian Clarkson was born on April 24, 1982, in Fort Worth, Texas. She grew up in Burleson, a small, quiet town where faith, family, and hard work were the values that shaped everyday life. Her childhood was not easy. When she was just 6 years old, her parents divorced, and the family was split apart in a way that left a mark on her she would carry for decades. Her brother went to live with their father. Her sister was sent to an aunt, and Kelly stayed behind with her mother. From that young age, she understood what it felt like to be left, to watch someone walk out the door and not come back. That wound, the one her father left when he walked away and never truly returned, became the emotional foundation of much of her music. Songs like Piece by Piece weren't just artistic expressions, they were confessions. They were her way of telling the world that underneath the powerhouse voice and the Grammy wins, there was a little girl from Texas who had spent most of her life searching for someone who would stay. That need to be loved completely, to be chosen fully, is what made Brandon Blackstock so intoxicating to her when their relationship finally began to blossom. And it is also, many believe, what made her stay long after the warning signs appeared. Kelly first crossed paths with Brandon Blackstock back in 2006, during rehearsals for the Academy of Country Music Awards. At that time, it was nothing more than a brief encounter. 2 people in the same room at the same moment, nothing sparking beyond the ordinary. But fate, as it often does in the most complicated love stories, had other plans. Years later, their paths crossed again, and what followed felt, at least from the outside, like something genuinely beautiful. Brandon came from music industry royalty. His father, Untold Blackstock, was a powerful talent manager and the longtime husband of country superstar Reba McEntire. Brandon himself worked as a talent manager, operating in the same world Kelly had spent her entire career navigating. By the time their relationship deepened, Kelly had been in the industry for nearly a decade. She was sharp, experienced, and by all accounts not easily fooled. Yet something about Brandon made her trust him in a way she had never trusted anyone before. By December 2012, he had proposed. She said yes. In October 2013, they were married. Together, they welcomed 2 children, daughter River Rose in 2014 and son Remington Alexander in 2016. To the outside world watching all of this unfold, it looked like Kelly Clarkson had finally found her fairy tale. But here is where things begin to unravel. And here is where the story gets complicated in ways that went largely unspoken for years. What Kelly has gradually begun to reveal, carefully, and on her own terms, is that the loneliness she felt inside her marriage was not occasional or fleeting. It was constant. She has described feeling many times over the course of those years, like she was essentially a single woman who happened to be married. She was raising children, managing her career, showing up for every obligation, and doing it largely without the partnership she had believed she was signing up for when she walked down that aisle. This kind of loneliness, the loneliness that exists inside a relationship rather than outside of it, is one of the cruelest emotional experiences a person can go through. It is invisible to everyone watching from the outside. The couple still shows up at events together. They still post the photos. They still give the interviews where everything sounds fine. But behind closed doors, One person is carrying far more than their share, and the weight of it accumulates quietly over months and then years until one day it becomes impossible to ignore. Kelly ignored it for a long time. She is, by nature and by necessity, a fighter. She grew up fighting. She fought her way through a painful childhood, fought her way through a music industry that tried to squeeze her into a mold she refused to fit, fought her way through record label politics and contractual obligations that forced her to do things, like starring in the widely panned film From Justin to Kelly, that she never wanted to do. She was not a woman who gave up easily, and so she stayed and she tried, and she hoped things would shift. They did not shift. They got harder. The financial dimensions of the divorce, when it finally came in June 2020, revealed details that shocked many people who had been following Kelly's career. Brandon, through his legal team, made claims regarding spousal support and property that suggested a level of entitlement that did not sit well with those who understood just how hard Kelly had worked for everything she had built. The Montana ranch, which became the central battleground of their property dispute, was one of the most contentious issues in the entire proceedings. Courts ultimately ruled that the ranch belonged to Kelly. Brandon was ordered to vacate the property, though it took until June 2022 before he actually moved out. During the period between the divorce filing and his departure, Kelly was essentially living with the ongoing presence of a legal battle that showed no sign of ending quickly or cleanly. What people did not fully understand at the time was how much of Brandon's professional life had been intertwined with Kelly's. He had managed her career. He had a seat at the table for decisions about her work, her deals, her direction. When a marriage ends and one partner has been deeply embedded in the other's professional world, the untangling becomes far more complicated than a standard divorce. The personal and the professional collapse into each other, and the fallout touches everything. In February 2022, Kelly made a decision that was deeply symbolic. She legally changed her name to Kelly Brienne, severing her connection to the Clarkson name she had used for her entire public life. She clarified that she would continue using Kelly Clarkson professionally, because that name had become a brand, a legacy, something far larger than any single relationship or personal wound. But the legal name change was about something more personal. It was about her troubled relationship with her father, Stephen Michael Clarkson, who had left the family when she was a child and with whom she never managed to rebuild a meaningful connection before his death. In changing her name, Kelly was doing something quiet and powerful. She was deciding, on her own terms, which parts of her history she would carry forward and which she would set down. She was not erasing herself. She was editing the story, choosing the chapters that belonged to her future rather than her past. That kind of clarity, the kind that only comes after surviving something that nearly breaks you, is evident in everything Kelly has done since the divorce was finalized. Her 2023 album, Chemistry, stands as one of the most emotionally honest bodies of work she has ever produced. Critics praised it not just for her vocal performance, which has always been extraordinary, but for the rawness of the writing. These were not polished, radio-friendly heartbreak anthems. These were confessions. These were the things she had been holding inside for years, finally given a voice. The move to New York City, where she relocated with River and Remington to film the 5th season of The Kelly Clarkson Show, represented something important beyond the professional opportunity it offered. It was a geographical declaration of independence. Los Angeles, Nashville, the Montana ranch, all of those places were tied to her life with Brandon in one way or another. New York was hers alone. A fresh city, a fresh start, a fresh version of herself that had nothing to do with the marriage she was leaving behind. And in New York, something unexpected happened. Kelly found joy again. Not the performative joy of someone trying to convince an audience that everything is fine, but genuine, earned, hard-won joy. The kind that feels different because you know what it cost you to get there. Her talk show flourished. Her audience connected with her in a new way, drawn in by the authenticity she was finally allowing herself to project without reservation. What nobody fully knew about Brandon Blackstock, what Kelly herself has only begun to articulate in the years since the divorce, is the degree to which the relationship reshaped her sense of self. She came into that marriage as one of the most successful artists of her generation. She left it having questioned, at her lowest points, whether she deserved the success she had built. That kind of psychological erosion does not happen overnight, and it does not announce itself loudly. It happens slowly in the small moments, in the ways a person is made to feel about their choices, their voice, their worth. Kelly Clarkson has never been a woman who needed someone else to validate her talent. The voice has always been there, undeniable and impossible to ignore. Simon Cowell himself said that American Idol was lucky to have found her, not the other way around. But even the strongest people can be made to doubt themselves when they are inside a relationship that is quietly, consistently working against them. What makes Kelly's story so powerful, and why it continues to resonate so deeply with the millions of people who follow her, is that she did not collapse. She bent in the way that honest, feeling people bend under real pressure. She cried. She struggled. She made the kind of music that could only come from genuine pain. But she did not break. Her children, River Rose and Remington Alexander, remain her North Star. She has spoken openly about making their well-being her absolute priority through every difficult step of the divorce process and its aftermath. When they told her they preferred her to stay single for now, she listened. She respected what they needed without sacrificing her own healing in the process. That balance between her own needs and those of the people she loves most is perhaps the most remarkable thing about where Kelly Clarkson stands today. She is not performing strength for an audience. She is not selling a comeback narrative. She is simply a woman who went through something genuinely hard, came out the other side with her integrity intact, and is now building a life that belongs entirely to her. The truth about Brandon Blackstock, in the end, is less about any single revelation and more about the full, complicated picture of a relationship that looked like a love story from the outside and felt, from the inside, like something Kelly had to survive. She survived it, and if the music she has made since, and the life she is clearly building now, are any indication, she is only just getting started.